Hey everyone, welcome to the Top It All podcast. This is Mark Shihadeh, and today I have a special guest, Gary Temple Bodley. Gary channels the teachings of Joshua. And if you're not familiar with that, you might be familiar with Abraham-Hicks about the law of attraction. But I think Gary and the teachings of Joshua are the next best thing from Abraham-Hicks. So we're going to get right into it. Hey Gary, how you doing?
Hey, Mark. Great to be here. Mark and I are really, really good friends. So it's funny that we're being so formal like this. And obviously, Mark is on my podcast. And so we're doing something a little bit different, but it's going to be fun. So we're going to work it out as we go.
That's right. Yeah, because, I mean, this is probably the third interview I've ever done.
Yeah. Well, it's getting off to a great start. But you know what is interesting is everyone thinks it's supposed to be perfect.
Yeah.
Immediately when they try something new, you know?
Yeah.
And what you really want to do is get into that learning curve, you know, and just say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get better. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get better. I'm going to do it. It's going to get easier. It's going to be like second nature. And,
I like that.
You know, that's how everything is. When you start anything new, it's just, you feel a little clumsy at first, and then you want to give up and you want to quit and you want to say, how come, you know, you want to beat yourself up and say, how come I can't do it right, you know? But you gotta get into what we'll say is a vibrational alignment with the whole thing. And this is part of it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay, here's the part where you're going to ask me what the hell channeling is.
Okay, can I do it though? Can I ask?
Absolutely.
All right. So Gary, what in God's earth is channeling? What is channeling? How did you get into it?
Okay. So I am a pretty normal guy. I had a super normal upbringing, and I was in business, went to college, you know, bought cars, got married, had a life, and didn't even know what channeling was. And then we listened to The Secret, my wife and I. Now, at this point in our life, we had made a ton of money and then lost everything in the crash of 2007. So we were looking to find a way to get back where we were, right? Yeah. And so we're trying everything and, of course, listening to motivational stuff and all that. And then our friend Deborah Jo, who you know, gave us a copy of The Secret. And so we didn't have a CD player in our house, so we drove around in the car listening to it. And we must have listened to the thing 20 times, right? And we go, this is the thing. This is great. So somehow from there, which is a funny, interesting story, but Lily goes through the house and finds a copy of Ask and It Is Given by Esther Hicks, right? And so Esther is channeling a group of non-physical entities called Abraham. And, you know, if you're aware of Esther and Abraham, it's this huge, big thing. There's millions of people following Esther, and there's videos on YouTube, and there's seminars every week all over the country, and there's cruises and all this thing, and she's been doing it for 20 years, right? And so at first you sort of think, well, what's channeling? Channeling is simply tapping into a stream of consciousness and allowing that stream of consciousness to talk through you, and everyone can channel. So it's not, for me, it wasn't something I learned. It's something that happened to me. And like I think with most channelers, it's something that happened to them. Esther started meditating and then realized in meditation that her nose was typing out the alphabet, right? And then came to, you know, go along and finally Abraham spoke through her. And a lot of it at first was writing. And then they were almost in a car accident, Esther and Jerry, and then Abraham came through Esther speaking. Well, similar thing happened to me. I started meditating after realizing that Jerry Seinfeld was meditating and all these other people were meditating, so I started meditating too. And pretty soon, I started feeling a presence in my face, inside the skin, on the side of my skull, the sensation as if there was a hand there. And so, you know, I was familiar with what Esther was doing, and so I thought, well, maybe this is some kind of non-physical entity just trying to communicate with me. and I didn't really believe it. I just thought, whatever. And so I started asking you questions, just like you would ask Abraham questions. And the answers came back very similar, but a little bit more specific than Abraham's answers. And so I just kept playing with it and didn't even tell anyone about it. And then one day I said, well, what's your name? And they said, Joshua. And so from then on, it was, and this happened about 5 years ago. Summer of 2013. And in November 15th, 2013, one morning during meditation, I'm talking to Joshua, and they say, get up and write. So I got out of the meditation, went to my computer, started typing, and I wrote 3 pages in about half an hour. Super quick. I typed with 3 fingers. And when it was done, the first 3 pages of A Perception of Reality was written.
Wow.
So it was absolutely like a book was being transcribed to me. And then the next day, I typed for an hour. The next day, I typed for an hour. In 8 weeks, a 300-page book was completed. The only thing I did was correct the typos. I had proofreaders look for typos. But that was it. And that book has been on Amazon now for about 4.5 years.
Yeah.
And then the day that stopped, the next book started. So that was Health, Wealth, and Love. Same thing. 8 weeks later, another book. And then a year later, another book. And then last year, a year after that, the Joshua Diet. And then last year was An Authentic Life. So 5 books just typed out effortlessly as if they were already completed. They're all brilliant books. And that was what channeling is. Channeling is bringing this information that is out there in the non-physical through to the physical. And I used to think it was super weird, and I didn't tell anyone about it in the beginning. But I put up a website, and we had friends that were interested, they were into Abraham, and so those friends started asking questions, and then just word spread. But it wasn't until like last year I even told my brother, And so I've come to be cool with it now, and to realize my place in this whole thing. There's a lot of other channels out there. And what those of us following Joshua are saying that the Abraham-Hicks, first there was Seth, then Abraham-Hicks. And Abraham is quite general and very accessible to a lot of people. And a lot of people are looking, how to manifest what they want. And Joshua is the next step of that law of attraction information, where it's way more specific. And being way more specific, it is appealing to a smaller group of people who have probably, some have really been into Abraham. I think you've been into Abraham, but then other people like Kyla and even Tracy and have never, Wendy came straight to Joshua, which is really interesting. Yeah.
Well, Wendy, I think she knew Abraham, but she preferred Joshua's message. She preferred the specifics of it, like the processes on how to do this stuff, how to do some of the things that is talked about with the law of attraction.
Yeah. It's I think that when I was really interested in Abraham, I couldn't imagine, finding another teacher, right? And then Joshua comes along, and I'm like, this is just like more stuff, more. It totally agrees. I mean, they don't disagree on anything, but there's extra stuff in there and extra perspectives in there. Yeah. Right.
And with that said, I mean, a lot of the information is just very similar.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's very general as well.
Well, there's nothing contradictory, not only to Abraham, but to any channel that is an authentic channel. There's Jules Johnson just wrote me an email and introduced me to another gentleman, David. It's The Stream of David. And we've been listening to his podcast. He just started in 2017. And so we're driving around in North Carolina here and hearing David on his podcast, and it is really good stuff, but it's all complementary. It all goes together. But and that's what I think is really, key to understanding this here is there's so many sources saying the same thing. And they're all happening now in 2018. And it's gaining a wider audience. And people are understanding that law of attraction isn't just thinking positive. That they're, that there's so much more to it. Joshua had once said that, Steve had asked, had said, like, it feels like Abraham is kindergarten and Joshua's graduate school. And then Joshua said, well, Abraham's the first week of kindergarten and we're the second week. Yeah.
Right.
Which shows you how much more there is to learn.
That's right.
In law of attraction.
Yeah. Okay, good. So when you're channeling, what does it feel like to you?
It feels, it's different. When I'm writing and when I'm speaking, it's two different things. So the writing started initially in the beginning. And then I started a podcast, the Roundtable, which you are on now, but it started back in, 2014 or so. And Jules Johnson is the president of the Law of Attraction Radio Network. And so she had a Law of Attraction cruise and invited me on the cruise. And there was a bunch of people there. And one of the things that Jules does is she's a hypnotist. And she comes to me and says, I'm going to bring Joshua through in speaking. And that never even occurred to me. I just thought that typing was how it was. So in typing, when I'm typing, I'm just getting a stream of thought and translating that into English words, right?
Yes.
So the thoughts really aren't English. They could be, if I was Russian, they'd be in Russian words, right? Mm-hmm. It's the thought. And since I know English, I translate it into English. So it's very smooth, easygoing. And if a phone rings, I can just stop, pick up the phone, talk. As soon as go right down to this in the middle of the same sentence and keep going.
Yeah.
In speaking, it's much more of a focus. I have to be a little bit more focused. But in the beginning of this, I meditated before I wrote. I had to do it in the morning. I had to have no music on and be in my office and lock the doors and nobody could come in and say anything. And now I can play music. I can do it any time of day. People can be in the room. It doesn't matter.
Right.
In speaking, I set it up like I spent all day doing Joshua. I meditate in the morning. I meditate right before doing Joshua live. And then I bring them in. I calm myself. So I don't have to do doing typing. Typing, I just start. But in speaking, I have to spend a few minutes or moments calming myself and quieting my mind and bringing them in consciously and setting my intentions. And then they come in, and then they get rolling. And it's a little disconcerting because I'm usually in front of a crowd. Right. So I have no idea what they're going to say. And it's almost like going on stage without anything prepared, without memorizing your lines or knowing it. So it's a little weird. But it always comes. There's never been a problem, and it's always brilliant stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I would attest to that. And so you're aware of everything that's going on.
Yeah, like if a fire alarm went off, I would know it, and that sort of thing. But I don't really remember a lot of it, so I have to listen back to it and stuff too. I'll get little key points, that stuff.
You don't remember, so it's almost like you're in a trance while it's happening.
No, it's sort of like I'm in a focus, in a deep focus,
in a deep,
right,
like a meditative.
I'm like
state,
shutting out the unnecessary stuff of my mind,
right,
and just allowing this one, like, if you're just sitting there and if you were watching a speaker, you might look over at the woman over here or look at the clock or look at your phone, In this case, I am completely focused on this stream of consciousness coming through. Mm-hmm. And I don't allow outside, but, sometimes people come and go. I just block that out. It doesn't care. I don't care anymore. If something seems to be going wrong, I don't care, and stuff goes on, and I just keep focus. In the beginning, I would lose my focus and have to try and come back,
Right. Okay.
But I think that's why if you listen to Joshua live, it's quick. It's fast talking, and it's unlike how I'm talking now. There's no real gaps. It's coming out, and the only gap is me trying to figure out the right word for that thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And then actually for everyone listening, we're gonna call on Joshua later on, right?
Which is one thing I've never done before, right? So I've never been in a conversation like this and then just brought Joshua in. And so I was like a little leery to do it, but, might as well try. Who knows?
Right. Let's try it. Okay, cool. Yeah. And so, but back to when you said when you're writing, you don't have to do anything. So, but do you set an intention?
No.
You set an intention?
I just like, if I'm writing a book, then I just read the last couple paragraphs of what was written before and then just go right in, right? And just the words just come. And then I'll just write 3 pages, fully thought out paragraphs, chapter headings, whatever it happens to be. If it starts a new chapter, the chapter title will be there. If I'm answering a question, I'll read the question and it'll just come. Dear, it always starts dear, whoever it is, and then it'll start. The first sentence will come, and from then it's just boom, all the way through.
Okay.
Like now we're doing the Secret series.
Right.
So we take a quote from The Secret. They have, if you get that Secret app, you get a quote every day. So we're taking a quote and we're seeing what Joshua has to say about the quote. Do they agree with it? Do they disagree? Do they have anything to add to it? Same thing. Read that quote and then the first sentence comes and it goes until it's done.
Okay. So if I sent you an email and I asked you a question, Gary, what do you think about this? And you wanted to reply to me. So what's the difference between you replying and Joshua replying if you don't create some kind of an intention to say, okay, Joshua, you come in now, or how does that work?
Okay. So if you're addressing it to me, I'll give you my opinion, right?
Right.
And my opinion is based on what I know now, what I believe now. And of course, a lot of that's influenced by Joshua's teachings, right?
Right.
But it's from my perspective.
Right.
Which is wrong a lot of the time. Not wrong, but like not what Joshua would say. Okay. If you send a question to Joshua, which people do every day, I will just read the question to Joshua and say, and put it in this, in my Word program and put it in this format that I have. And maybe that part is doing the intention, but then I just listen to what Joshua's saying and just start typing, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's super obvious. I know when Joshua's talking when I'm thinking, Yeah.
It's super obvious.
It's super obvious. And I have conversations with Joshua all the time. I mean, that's why I don't really, in the beginning I tried asking my own questions, but as I'm even formulating the question, I have the answer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I want to talk a little bit about how I found you guys. So I actually, some of my clients told me that there's like a new law of attraction channeler. It's really, really good. And so I went to the website and I liked the information. And then eventually I checked out the podcast, the Roundtable podcast. And that's when I really, really liked you guys because it was real shit. Yeah. Like you guys were just real. You're a normal guy. It's not the woo-woo.
I'm a little above normal.
You are, you're exceptional in that respect.
Right.
You're an amazing. But as far as like the new age woo-woo stuff, you're a normal guy.
Well,
I don't.
Yeah, it's cool that we get to. We have two podcasts. So one is Joshua just doing Joshua's thing, and is Joshua Live. But the roundtables that we're doing is so much more fun because, we take our perspectives on it, and that. And people get to follow our lives too, which is interesting. Yeah. And so you get to see where, how we're using the information and how we're being playful and silly and having fun and not being too serious. Because really, this isn't that serious of a life. We have a higher perspective of what things are, or how things are going on now, and so we can share that perspective with people and have fun with it.
Yeah, and then we talk about our interpretation, and then we'll read Joshua's answer to a question or the Secret series or something like that. Yeah. So it's really good. Yeah, and so when I first heard you guys, and then Kyla and Wendy, I just really was attracted to how you guys were doing it. It was real. You were swearing. There was no formality to it.
Yeah.
So much so that let's see. I think I emailed you one day and I asked. Well, you had Steve on there.
Yeah.
And then Steve left, and I emailed you and I said, hey, if you're ever looking for some male energy, I'd love to be on the show to try it.
And that's what really Joshua's teachings are, is that we are guided by inspiration. We are guided by our inner self, by our guides and supporters. We call them our millions. Right. We are guided by the stream of consciousness. And when you're excited by something, you get this inspiration. So the inspiration for you was this, jot off an email, and just, you had no expectations of what would happen. Right. And then I realized that was inspiration right away, because here you are, just out of the blue, coming forward to offer this, and I was like, absolutely, let's do it. Right. Which must have surprised you.
It totally surprised me. And, let me back up, because I left out the part where I was doing a book club on the Joshua books. Yeah. So we had 4 or 5 people in this book club, and every week we would discuss, we would read, I think we'd read 2 chapters, and then we would discuss it. And Donna, who's part of that, she came on your show, and she was telling me, you should be on the Roundtable, you should try it. And I'm like, I just wasn't inspired at that point. I wasn't inspired until I emailed you that email. So like you're saying, I waited for the inspiration.
And that inspiration comes when it comes, and it's the right timing. But what we do when we receive the inspiration so often is we receive fear at the same time. So anytime you have inspiration, you also will always have fear. Yeah. Even if it's like you have inspired to have lunch, the fear is, what if it takes too long? What if it's not good? Blah, blah, blah. All these things, right? Tiny little fears. Well, the inspiration to send an email, what if he rejects me? What if he never answers? All this stuff, right? But you push through the fear. You didn't let the fear stop you. And that's all fear does, is it's limiting, and it stops you from doing these things that you are inspired to do.
Right. And at that point, I guess if you're truly inspired, there's less fear than if you're pushing through and you're kind of forcing yourself to do something.
Right. Well, see, true inspiration is to do something that may not be in the path of what you think you want. Right. And so often when you're trying to manifest what you think you want, you make yourself do stuff that you think you should be doing. Right. And what we're learning now is that if we just let go of all these things we think we want and just trust that all the things we truly want, the things we intended prior to birth, will manifest so much more elegantly and beautifully if we just act on inspiration rather than, succumb to motivation, for instance.
Motivation, what I should do, what and trying to make things happen.
Right.
But like you said, I was totally surprised that you answered right away and said, sure, what are you doing next Tuesday or whatever it was. Yeah.
And now you've been Saturday. On, 50? How many episodes have you done?
Shoot, I don't know. A lot.
It's been a while, yeah. We've gone on cruises
and I was
together.
Totally nervous. Yeah, I never did anything like that, so I definitely pushed through fear for that, too.
Yeah. And, imagine the comfort level or how uncomfortable it was the first podcast and how super comfortable it is now,
Totally.
It's this moving from one vibrational level to another vibrational level, of so much so that when you were inspired to start your own podcast, boom, it was easy. It was a no-brainer, right? But say 2 years ago, the idea of having your own podcast would have been too scary, ridiculous. You would have shot it down, So you had to go through all these steps to get where you are now.
Right. Yeah. And I had been thinking about doing my own podcast, but I know now I don't try to force things. I wait till they feel right and I'm inspired, and that's how this one started. Like, okay, the perfect timing, and I started it. Now, it's still not all easy, and I still go through my fears and things like that, but it's natural. I don't feel like I'm forcing anything. Yeah. And I'm having fun. I am having fun with it.
Yeah.
Like, this is awesome.
Yeah, this is fun. I mean, and how you know it's fun is when time just flies by. You know,
Right.
When we are up in we do our podcast for an hour, and that hour goes by. That's the quickest hour of my week, I think. You know,
Right.
The time we start, and 10 seconds later, it's over.
I know.
And it's an hour podcast. Yeah, so
it's
that's how you know
fun.
when you're doing something that you're ready to do. That's for your highest good. That is perfectly aligned with who you truly are. You're not forcing anything.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to get back to some of my questions here. So, do you ask Joshua questions and advice?
Well, yeah. I mean, we more have conversations, right?
Okay.
And so a lot of times I'm being silly,
Uh-huh.
and then but then I get this really cool insights into things. Like one insight was just the other day, is that the human experience from the non-physical perspective is super brief, and it is more of a dream. It's like our dreams. When we go back to non-physical, that's reality. This is just a trip. This is a trip, like a DMT trip or like a ayahuasca trip. So you do DMT, and 10 minutes, you have 10 minutes of being in this other realm that seems super real. Well, this realm seems super real now. And so whether we do this trip, we can do hundreds and millions of trips. We're never ending doing physical lives. So it doesn't matter really how long we live. We could, live a year, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years. From our perspective, it's good to live long. But from the non-physical perspective, the length of time doesn't matter at all, because time isn't judged that way. There is no judgment.
And there is no death.
There's no death. I mean, this is like, going to Disneyland, and when you're ready to leave Disneyland, no one's crying that you're leaving Disneyland, right? Because you can come back the next day or any time you want.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. So you do ask questions or advice. Like, what is it like?
Like, I don't ask advice anymore. You
don't ask advice?
No, because they don't give you advice, right? That's not what they do.
Yeah.
They show you another perspective, right? And so you might say, do they give me guidance? But I know, and it comes in a thought, so I know the thought right away, But it's not like, go down here, turn left, turn right. But that's what inspiration is, too. You and I had this experience when we were in St. Thomas.
Right.
And so that day, the group of us said, we're just going to be guided by inspiration. And so we just kept our eyes out for inspiration. And we were inspired to get this one bus that all of us were in there by ourselves, right? And it was great. And then we let the bus take us wherever they took us, downtown. And then we got off and we walked found a bathroom. Then we walked and found this little kiosk. And then we found this cool hotel. And then the lady told us to go on this boat to St. John's, and she said her friend owns this restaurant, and we found the restaurant. Just happened to have one table available, fitting all 7 of us. And then we found this little tuk-tuk thing to drive us around the island. We just went where we want, and the whole day was magical. It was perfect,
Right.
And we're just guided by inspiration. And so that's what I'm focused on now, is not making these plans and just being guided by inspiration. So I was inspired to look for a house in North Carolina, a big house where we could all, people could come and go, and we could have fun there. That's all the inspiration was. Just look for a house. So I got, I'm a realtor, and I got online, and I looked all over the South, and I looked at all these big houses and how cool I really like old houses. So looked at these old houses, and then took a road trip and saw like 20 of them. And before I even took that road trip, I found this house that I ended up buying that just popped on the market, and I bought it sight unseen. And then things just snowball, and they just work out, Before, in my old life, I was, having goals, and the goal was really to make as much money as possible, and having a big business. And a lot of it was ego gratification, You know, I'm a big
Right.
shot because I got a big business and I got a nice car and I got a nice house. I got a nice wife. I got all this stuff, right? And so I was in that lane that so many people find themselves in, just
Sure.
trying to attain stuff that makes you look good.
Right.
You know, that's all I was trying to do.
So we call this, the Joshua calls it the new approach, right? The new
Yeah.
approach to life is not trying to plan things. Don't try to make things happen.
Well, it's one word: don't control.
Don't control.
Right.
Don't control things.
Right.
And learn to trust that. Learn to trust the unknown. Learn to be okay with. So just that in it of itself is a practice. It's something that doesn't come easy to a lot of us. Didn't come easy to me. I'm still working on it all the time. And just like you, I see how things, they seem magically happen.
Right.
As the more we actually let go, the more how brilliant your life can be.
Right.
Because now it's not orchestrated by you, where you think
Right.
how you think things should happen,
Right.
and trying to make things happen. But there's this, I would say, your inner self or the universe
Yeah.
is creating circumstances with you and for you
Right.
that
So-
you could have never done.
You could
on
never
your
done.
own.
You just don't have enough information. Your perspective is this individual speck of dust, you know, looking out to the universe. You just don't
Right.
know what is. You're like a little ant. You don't have enough information.
Right.
But you are guided. You're never alone here. You always have guidance, and that guidance comes in the form of inspiration. However, the caveat is that really only happens when you're feeling good. Like
Right.
in this conversation now, we're feeling good, and so the words flow pretty easily because we're receiving the guidance and things are, you know, ideas are coming to us and we're having fun and we're bantering back and forth. But if we were in fear, which is worry or depression or doubt or even boredom, right?
Right.
Then we receive urges to change the conditions. You know, like if you're hungry and you receive, you know, the urge to have a taco or an ice cream or whatever, you receive that urge. Well, you didn't manufacture that. That came from outside you. I mean, we're learning now that the gut biome is sending you signals, sending you these cravings for certain foods, right? Because it's easier to digest sugar, for instance. If you're a smoker, you get the urge to have a cigarette. These are coming from outside. They're not being manufactured inside you. Well, if you're feeling good, if you're above that emotional horizon line, you receive inspiration that will move you towards where you truly want to be. Now, there's a big difference between where you think you want to be and where you truly want to be. And that's the key difference between, I think, Joshua and a lot of other law of attraction stuff, is that in law of attraction, you're told that you think about what you want and you can manifest it. Now, that's absolutely true, but it's not elegant. If you think about what you want, a lot of times you're thinking about stuff, you know, to make you feel secure or to make you feel loved or to make you make you happy, you know. And we know that all that stuff, all that lack of love, lack of security, lack of abundance is all self-imposed limitation. So we want to get rid of that self-imposed limitation. And so what we're doing now in the new approach to life is understanding that when we have negative emotion, it's signaling that we have a limiting belief to work on. And that limiting belief limits us from living the life we want, the life we came here to live, right? And so instead of changing conditions, like telling your spouse to be different than they are, or telling your boss or wishing your boss would get fired so that you'd have a different boss, or quitting your job because you hate your job, instead of trying to control those conditions, you control the beliefs that say that your boss isn't good or your spouse should be different or whatever that is. Because the only way you could think anything should be different is because you have a limiting belief. And how you know you have a limiting belief is when those people do something that cause you to feel fear.
Right.
Right. You can get in an argument with your wife right now by saying something that will cause her to feel fear. And what she comes back with will be an urge to control you. You know, if you say, listen, me and the guys are going to go to Vegas for 2 weeks, and I'm going to enter this, you know, poker tournament for $100,000, right?
Okay.
They're going to say something about that,
Yeah.
and that's going to be based in fear, right?
Right.
Had they had no limiting belief, I don't care if he goes. I hope he has a good time. We're totally abundant. It doesn't matter if he wins or loses. It's all great, right? So those are the limiting beliefs that we all have, and there's an infinite, like an onion where you peel away the layers. That goes on forever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I like to. So the idea is to feel good.
Right.
To feel good, and then you will get that. The inspiration, and how I like to say the universe orchestrates events on your behalf. Oh, yeah. So I also like to say that it's like the universe has the forest for the trees view. Right. So imagine the universe up above, and I think I want to go somewhere. I think I want to go somewhere, and I think the best way, and I know that this is to go a straight line. This is the best way to go here, the fastest way, go a straight line. Well, where the universe can see, well, no, if you go straight, there's a road that's blocked. So you're going to have to make a left turn here, and then make a right turn here, and then make a left. Yeah. And so actually, when we try to be in control of our lives, we're not utilizing the information from the universe that has that perspective, that higher perspective.
Well, if you think of control, the reason that you want to control something is because you want things to be different than they are.
Right.
And the only reason you would ever want something to be different than it is because you think that you'd feel better if it was different. Right? So you're sort of taking the easy way out of it. But the whole point is that you feel better first, and then your reality matches how you feel. And so you feel better because, and this was the thing that I never heard anywhere else, except from Joshua, was that this reality, all we're doing is feeling, we're feeling something now. It doesn't matter. Nothing else matters, right? We're either feeling good or we're feeling bad. If we're feeling good, then all we're saying is, I accept what's happening now. Yeah. And if we're feeling bad, all we're saying is, I have some fear about what's happening now, or what's happening in the future, or what's happened in the past, right? Right. And so if all you do is set your life up so you feel good, then that's reward in itself, because you're feeling good more of the time rather than feeling bad. But it just turns out that in feeling good, you become a cooperative component to the universe to bring you everything you want, to help you feel good more often.
That's right. Yeah, and and I also, I've heard people talk about how, people say, well, what are you going to do? You're just going to lie around and feel good. You're not going to do anything. There's proponents of action, right? And people tend to think when we talk like this that we're not talking about action. Right. And actually, I feel we're just talking about a priority. The action isn't the priority. It doesn't come first. The feeling good comes first. Right. Actually, the feeling good is first. Right. It's the most important, and it's the first thing. And then you will get inspiration to act. Yes. So it's not like you're sitting around not doing anything. You're just feeling good first. Right. I like to think of it that way.
Which we'll have to start out by saying that the most important thing you can do is meditate, because the meditation allows you to gain some control over your thoughts, to realize when you're having a joyful thought compared to when you're having a resistant thought or a fearful thought.
Right. That's great.
So what I do is I meditate. I spend a great deal of time, and Joshua created this workbook, this playbook, where you can write in what you appreciate, what your intentions are, what you're grateful for, that thing, every single day of your life.
I loved it.
Yeah. And so this gets you in this vibration of appreciation, gratitude, setting your intentions, feeling good, quieting your mind because you meditate every day. Right. Also, how you eat too. Thinking more about what you're eating and when you're eating and how you're eating. And this is a little bit off topic, but the Joshua diet is saying you'll be inspired to eat the way that's most beneficial to your body if you can get to this level of feeling good first, right? So
Right.
everything
so the Joshua,
is
so there's no diet. Like the Joshua
Right.
diet, it's a way of thinking. It's a state of mind.
yeah, because we're all unique, right? And so everyone's body and what they like is all unique to them. And so for me, I was guided to more of a ketogenic diet. Also intermittent fasting. So for me,
Right.
I used to eat breakfast and I'd make myself starve. I'd be starving by lunch, because the breakfast would tend to be, it was protein shakes with the frozen banana, and that sugar in that banana would burn so quickly that my gut biome would crave more sugar, and I would just be starving for lunch. And then I eat these big lunches, and and then so I stopped eating lunch. I mean, stopped eating breakfast. And then I was never hungry at lunch. So a lot of times I skip lunch. And then I just eat whatever I want. I love to cook, so I eat whatever I want for dinner. And then it worked really good for me. Now we're working on the house, and so the guys like me to buy them lunch, and so it's always total crap. But it's fun. We're having fun. Fried chicken. That's great. I'll have to get back on it. But the point was, not everyone, like, most people couldn't do what I do, but I feel full of energy this way. And I was guided to this specific diet through a podcast and articles and stuff like that talked about it.
Yeah.
And it works great for me. Yeah.
So it works for you.
But
and you lost a lot of weight.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel great and I look good, and you can see more on video. You can see how good I look.
You're gorgeous. I have to say.
Look at these arms.
I see them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
The gun show is
The gun
in
show.
full
The gun
effect
show's
right
on,
now.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a few more questions, but I guess what we can do is pull in Joshua if you want, and then at the end we can go to the finishing up, like how people can find out more, and where do you see this going? How does that sound? You want to?
Okay, well let's do that now, and then after Joshua we'll find out what happens. But if you want more information, just go to theteachingsofjoshua.com. And if you want to listen to the podcast, just go to Podbean, right?
Yeah.
And or Stitcher or iTunes or whatever. One is Joshua Live, or just search me, Gary Temple Bodley. If you just Google me, you'll find everything. Anyway,
Gary Temple Bodley.
Where this is going, I don't care. I don't really care. I'm inspired to do certain things. And so I'm inspired to be on the Law of Attraction Radio Network. I'm inspired to create this house where people can come and stay for a week and see how it is to live the Joshua lifestyle. And I'm inspired to do cruises occasionally. I'm inspired to do seminars. I love doing the podcast. I don't know where the money's coming from at this point. I don't care. It'll come when it comes. I have zero doubt that it'll come when it needs to come. It always seems to come when it needs to come. So I'm just going to keep it going like it is and do what I'm inspired to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you might not want to answer this or have an answer to this, but do you see yourself doing like workshops and events in North Carolina, or do you see yourself traveling and doing how Abraham does, or do you not even like to think about it?
Yeah, I don't really want to think about it too much. So I think it's cool that Abraham can go to a city, a different city every week, and have 500 people come, but there's a lot of logistics to that. You have a lot of travel and a lot of stuff like that. Also, I'm super social, so I like hanging out with people. I don't like coming from a backstage and then going backstage, after it's over. I like mingling. So I don't know what's going to go on. Yeah, there's the new book's coming out, and there's also a really cool novel coming out too.
Okay.
So that's where it's going for now. We'll see what happens a year from now. Yeah.
All right, and the last thing, what about the one-on-one program? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so the one-on-one program was where people would write in 3 or 4 questions a week for a 6-month period. Yeah. Usually about 100 questions. And they paid $600 a month. They had to meditate every day. They couldn't make any major changes during that time period. And that was it. And that was a lot of fun. A whole bunch of people did that. but it was really time consuming. I was doing 10 people at one time. So you're thinking about, 30 to 40 to 50 questions a week.
Right.
So it didn't give me a lot of time to do other questions from other people or write the books, or travel. So I stopped that. And now what I'm doing is video one-on-ones. They're an hour long. They're $150. And so it has this conversation with Joshua. And and some people do 1 and some people do 5, and it's really cool. And then you get to watch it back and listen to it whenever you want and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay, and then to find out more about that, you go to theteachingsofjoshua.com, right?
Yeah, and hit the one-on-one, and it's very complicated. It is. It's hard. Also,
is it really?
But yeah, it's so complicated. It's so you have to go through the one-on-one, and you have to you see all the people, and some of the people have their questions there, and then there's like a little tiny line that says if you want to read about the new one-on-one, you click this tiny little link there. Yeah, so we'll have to redo that. But another thing that everyone should do is check out the Joshua documentary. So on YouTube, Google Gary Temple Bodley, and you'll see the Joshua documentary, and that's about an hour long. It was filmed in Vegas this year. You're in it. You're the star of it.
I'm the star?
Yeah. You're the star of it.
Well,
so.
And then I'm the star, and then there's Joshua. So it's me, and then
Joshua.
No,
it's actually Joshua's not. Well, Joshua's in it, like the recording, the workshops, but I'm in it, and you're in it, and a whole bunch of the people are in it.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm the star. Okay. Very good. And what about the Facebook group? I love that group. Let's talk about that. For people, if you want to get more information, search. How do you search it's the Friends of Joshua?
Yeah, Friends of Joshua Facebook group, and there's a couple hundred people, and they're all like-minded, cool people.
It's fun.
And we just put up stuff there. Mostly cat stories, cat videos,
sometimes dogs,
and sometimes quotes, and sometimes
but the quotes have to be about cats, or
sometimes mostly about cats.
Mostly about cats, right?
Cat quotes, cat videos. Yeah, there's a lot of cat ladies who are interested in that group.
That's right.
Just kidding. Lord. There's a lot some of the coolest people. I really love this group. We get together and do these cruises, and it's like we've known each other our whole lives. It's just amazing.
So freaking fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you would say I'm the star of the Facebook group too?
Well, when you go on a cruise, everyone wants to talk to you. Do you feel like a superstar when you're on the Joshua cruise?
I feel like a superstar, yeah. Everyone wants to talk to me, yeah.
Yeah, they want your autograph. They want you to tap them.
No, it's super fun, man. Yeah, it's totally easygoing, no weird stuff. I don't know. It's just fun, and it's and people it's very low key and easygoing, isn't it?
Well, it's a party. It's basically a party. It's an excuse for us to get together. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
What do you think?
All right. Let's see if this works. No guarantees.
Okay.
We'll see what happens. No, it'll work. I'm just kidding. It always works. We are thrilled to be here.
It worked.
It always works. There's never a time it doesn't work. That's an interesting thing to think, right? If I, as a human, know that I'm guided from non-physical, and know that I have an inner self and millions of guides and supporters who are guiding me through every step. My inner self is aware of every thought I think. How could I feel alone? Will my inner self always be there? And we say, just notice your emotions. Your emotions are your guidance system. And so if you feel positive emotion, you know for sure that your inner self is aware of what you're thinking. And your inner self agrees with your perspective in this moment.
Right.
If you feel negative emotion, you know for sure that your inner self is paying attention to that thought. And in this moment of negative emotion, your inner self is telling you that your perspective is not the reality that your inner self sees, that you are being triggered by some condition in your reality that brings through fear because it activates the limiting belief. And so this is your guidance system. It's always on. We are always here. Your inner self is always here. Your millions of guidance supporters are always with you. You can ask a question at any time. You can communicate with this stream of consciousness at any time. It's available to all. And if you choose it, it's there for you.
Yes. All right. So now how, if I was interested in channeling or being in more connection with my inner self, what do you suggest I do?
Well, we suggest that there's two things you can do. One is to meditate every day, 10 to 15 minutes a day, preferably in the morning, and gain some control over the stream of thought that comes to you. Now, you might think that you manufacture thoughts in your brain, that that's what the brain does. Well, the brain is more like a receiver and a transmitter, and you receive thoughts and you transmit thoughts, and those thoughts are brought forth through your vibration. And you can tell how you're vibrating, what you're emitting, based on the flow of thoughts that are coming to you. And so if the flow of thoughts are generally positive, well, then you have a generally high vibrational stance. And if the flow of thoughts is generally negative or generally fearful, worrisome, doubtful, then you understand that you're vibrating that negative end of the spectrum, and that you create your reality through what you are vibrating. And so that stream of thoughts is part and parcel of your vibration. You receive thought, and then you emit thought. You receive a perception of your reality, and through your beliefs and feelings and thoughts about yourself and the world and who you think you are within the universe and your place on Earth, you create this vibrational force that goes out into the universe and brings back a mirror to exactly what you are vibrating, so that you can see your vibration. Doesn't that make sense? This reality is nothing more than a mirror. If you like your reality, then your vibration is perfectly in alignment with who you are and what you truly want. And if there's some aspect of your reality that you don't like, then you have to go through a process of taking inventory on the belief set, the opinions that you have about this, what you think is right or wrong about it, how you perceive yourself in concert with it. You see, the other thing you can do, other than meditating, is to see if you understand what is really happening in your reality. For instance, from our perspective, from the perspective of non-physical, there's no fear, there's no judgment, there's no wrong anywhere in the universe. If there is no wrong, then we will say everything is right. Now, you might have a little bit of an argument against everything is right, because you may say, this is right and that's wrong. Well, that is a dualistic approach to life, where you say that some things are wrong, some things are right, based on my personal judgment. I judge this is right and this is wrong. And the things you judge as right happen to agree with the beliefs that you hold. And the things you judge as wrong happen to agree with the beliefs you hold. Yet, those beliefs are the very things that's creating your vibration, and that is limiting you in certain key areas of your life. And so we say, take a look at the beliefs. And those beliefs will let you know what you're vibrating. And if you can be a little bit more malleable, soften the intensity of those beliefs. You can't get rid of any belief, but you can soften its intensity by proving to yourself that the belief is not true, by finding evidence that it's not true. Well, then you just changed your vibration. It's now a new vibration. And in response to that new vibration, you have a new reality. And now, we will also say that the reality doesn't change overnight, that you wouldn't want it to change overnight, that there is another law of continuity that lets you say that this moment is similar to the last moment, and this day is similar to the last day. But over a course of days and weeks and months and years, you will see a shift in your vibration and a shift in your overall sense of beingness, of feeling better, of seeing yourself from a higher perspective, of seeing others from a higher perspective.
Yes. Okay. All right. So to sum that up, you would say meditating and then take a look at your beliefs and process them.
Process them, exactly. So what is the process of processing a belief? Is the belief beneficial? Is it empowering? Is it in alignment with who I truly am? And as you know, who you truly are is a magnificent and limitless being of pure positive love and acceptance. Who you're being is something different than that, a limited version of that. So, does the belief conform or align with who you truly are, this pure positive being of love and acceptance, or is it limited? Does it align with a limited version of you? Does it align with a version of you that might be defined as a victim? Does it bring up a fear? Does it cause you to protect yourself, for instance? Right?
Right.
Now, once you've adopted a belief, that belief is with you forever. The law of attraction states that when you attract something, it is with you forever. However, it doesn't mean it has to be limiting. It could be empowering. And that is determined by how you look at that belief and how you choose to process it. If the belief is limiting, if it doesn't serve you, then you can reduce the intensity of that belief by finding evidence to prove it's false. All limiting beliefs are false. Every single limiting belief that you've ever held is a false belief. Every beneficial belief you've ever held is a true belief. So you can ratchet up the intensity of beneficial beliefs, and you can modulate or reduce the frequency or the intensity of limiting beliefs. You do that by finding proof that the limiting belief is false. It takes hard work to make money.
Right.
That's not true. Money can be generated easily. Money can be generated through a passion. It could be fun to make money. There's a lot of people who've made tons of money with what you would call no work at all. Right?
That's right.
You know that money is simply a mindset, that it is a flow of energy. Yet, if you have the belief that it takes hard work to make money, then the only way that you can attract money is through hard work. And that's a limiting belief, because how hard can you work? And who wants to work hard anyway? Right?
Yeah. And, going back to what you said earlier, you can also determine if it's a limiting belief through your emotions. Does it feel good when I think it? And if it does, then can you say it's a beneficial belief? And if it doesn't, can you say it's a limiting belief?
Well, sometimes a limiting belief can feel good to you.
Okay.
Rich people are evil. That feels good because you're not evil, right? And so you say, I'm not rich, therefore I'm not evil. That feels good to me. But it doesn't serve you. And it isn't aligned with love. And it isn't true. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if you had one main message for our listeners, what would that be? What's your main message if you have one?
We would offer that there is more going on here than you can imagine, and that you are an eternal being, and that this life is but a blink, and that when you transition to the non-physical, when you choose that day, you will see from a higher perspective what your life was like, and that you will see all the fears and limitations that kept you from living the life you intended to live, right? And had you been able to see yourself from a higher perspective, you would have pushed through those fears. The fears would not have limited you. And so we say to live a less limited life is to be able to process fear more and to see yourself from a higher perspective. So we'll say that you're perfect as you are now. There's no room for improvement. You might expand through experience, but as you are in this moment, you're as perfect as you were the day you were born. The way to move through any fear and doubt is to see yourself from a higher perspective. Seeing yourself as eternal, seeing yourself as a being of love, seeing yourself as entitled and worthy of limitless potential. Believing that the universe is working on your behalf and bringing you everything you need when you need it. And that any limitation you have is self-imposed and can be dialed down. And you can create the life that you choose right now. Now, you may have come into this reality purposely setting up a trajectory that had a few hurdles in it. But once you've come to this point and you're listening to this message right now, you're in a place where you can move forward. And none of those things in the past have any bearing on where you're going now. So you are absolutely the creator of your reality, whether you believe you are or not. You are not a victim whatsoever, even though sometimes you act like one. There's no need for any of the irrational fear that you contemplate and focus on, and that you can now start thinking about how to feel good, how to live a life that feels good, and leave alone the things that you think you want in favor of the things you truly want. You came here to express your love, experience freedom and joy, and expand in joy in the process of that experience. And if you let go of the control of how you think your life should be, of what others think you should be doing, and just go with the flow of what is actually happening, then you will move into a life that feels better for you. And since this is a feeling reality and the only thing that ever matters is how you feel, feeling good is the most important thing, or the most valuable thing that you could focus on.
Awesome. Very good. Okay. I will have to go back and listen to that again, just to reinforce it. So there are people in the United States that are worried about our government and maybe worried about Trump or whatnot. What would you say to them?
The more you worry, the more you intensify the things you're worried about.
Okay. Okay.
You can live a wonderful life no matter who's in charge, because they have no ability to create your reality. Do you care about the leadership of Peru?
No.
Because you know that the leader of Peru has very little ability to create your reality. But you perceive possibly that the president or the mayor or the governor or the school superintendent has some ability to create your reality. That's simply not true. The more you fight against this perceived control or perceived ability to create your reality, you make it larger. And you make it so that there is some impact, because your reality has to reflect what you believe, right? So if you believe that the president can create your reality, and you fear that, then that has to come true for you in some form that possibly doesn't really even matter to you, right?
Right.
You might perceive that now there is a war on immigration, and that immigration's a terrible thing, and fight against this idea that people should be kept out of the country or thrown out of the country if they came here illegally. And you might think, that is a terrible thing. And then you might hire someone to work in your yard and realize that you can't find anyone. Right.
Right.
Because that's just happening in your reality. It happens because it matches the vibration you're offering. Now, if you detach yourself from it, just like you're detached from the leader of Peru, do you know who that is?
No.
Then you're not focused on it, and it can't affect you. It can't pop up in your reality because it wouldn't make sense, right?
Right.
How you create your reality has to make sense to you. So if you're fighting against something, then logically, that thing you're fighting against has to pop up in your reality. And as a mass consciousness, you create this. Fear creates it. Fear brings it forth. Fear does it. But in actual reality, there is nothing that can affect you unless you're focused negatively on it. So just let it go. It's no big deal. It'll all be over in a short while. And the pendulum will swing the other way. And the desires that are created out of this will move the vibration of the populace of this country in another direction.
Yeah.
And
very good.
Good always comes out of these things. Positive is a very strong power that will always come out of these things that are perceived as negative.
Right. Awesome. Okay. And so also in the U.S., there's a lot more school shootings, and there's racial tensions, and there's, the awareness of women's rights or lack of them, and equal pay and things like that. How would you say that this is a good thing, or what would you say as far as someone who's worried about these things?
Would we ever say that anything's a bad thing?
No, you wouldn't.
So everything has to be a good thing.
Right.
If there is no wrong, if there is no bad, then what's left is good and right.
Right.
And it is your responsibility to find out what is good and what is right about anything you think of. So you think, for instance, that a mass shooting is a tragedy.
Right.
Now, on the same day of the mass shooting, far more people died of cigarette smoke or lung cancer or car accidents or heart attacks. They're just not grouped together. So from your perception, it seems like this mass shooting is a tragedy. Right. But from another perspective, the perspective of the longer, higher view, that these people chose to come together for this event, and it was a perfect vibrational match to everyone who's participating. Is there a purpose to it? Well, what do you think about that? Do you think that there was any benefit to this? That if you could see the benefit to a mass shooting, what could it be?
I think more as far as a mass shooting, I haven't given that a lot of thought, but I think more about the benefits of, let's say, Trump and let's say the government. And I see how I see how things are brought up to the surface. And I always relate it to a person, like our government and our country is going through what a person can go through, where a person is in, let's say, a certain amount of denial in their life, and they're not thinking about feeling good, and they're not living the new approach. And so they're kind of trying to control circumstances, and maybe they're not connected with their inner self. And then what happens when that happens to a person, things start to bubble up to the surface, and you might get
So what you're saying is the manifestation of the government is the product of the fear of the people.
Well, I say that it's a good thing, because for us to get to where we want to be in the United States, I think we need to deal with some of these things that are percolating up to the surface so that we can deal with them.
Well, certainly that's true.
Yeah.
But if you look at the government that you have now,
right,
those that elected the current president were in fear for whatever reason. The country was going in the wrong direction. The economy wasn't doing good. Their personal economy wasn't doing good. That the recession of 2007 was the caused by fat cats in Wall Street, and now we need to clean the swamp. And so they decided that the way to reduce their personal fear was to change the conditions. Right. And if the conditions change, then they could feel better. Rather than saying, I will process my own fear based on my own limiting beliefs and allow things to be as they are. And so they made a change, and the change did not reduce the fear. In fact, it increased the fear. And that tends to happen when you act on fear.
Right.
But the benefit of all this is that people are exposed to this idea that the presidency really isn't as powerful as they once thought, that there isn't anything bad that can happen, that things are going to go along the way they are, that the government is made out of millions of well-meaning people who make sure things move along in a direction that is generally positive. And if you look back from 1900 and that government and how people lived in 1900 to 1930 to 1950 to 1970 to 1990 to 2010, you can see the vast improvement in the quality of life of people in this country, regardless of the government, regardless of anything that was going on. It's not the government that really has any control, nor does anything else. It's the individual that chooses the life that they want to live. And so in a mass shooting, what comes out of that is love for these people, this place. Sometimes it's a class of people. Sometimes it's a location, like the Boston Marathon. Sometimes it's people becoming neighborly again.
Right.
After 9/11, New Yorkers were friendlier than they'd ever been. That firefighters and police officers were held in very high regard all over the country, not just in New York. And people were inspired to certain careers and to certain ideas based on it. And also people were in fear too, and people acted on fear as well. But generally, these things bring forth more love and more positivity and more benefit and more awareness of issues.
Right. Yeah, and I see that now. I see that we're talking about things. We're having lots of discussions. It's almost like we're being woken up in some ways. And it could be rocky now, but you talk a lot about perspective, like time. Like right now, it might feel chaotic.
It feels fearful, right? And the fear is based on limiting belief. So the number one limiting belief you have is that you should not die, nor should anyone die, right? Based on your survival instinct.
Right.
But all you're doing is leaving Disneyland. All you're doing is returning home when you want to, right? But from your perspective, you see a lion chasing down an impala and you feel bad for the impala because you don't want to be in those shoes because you're putting yourself mentally in the place of the impala. But the impala came to be food. The impala is ready to return to non-physical. The impala lived a wonderful life, and the death experience is not painful and goes very quickly. And the essence of the impala leaves far before the actual death anyway.
Okay. All right. So I have just one last question so far. If someone out there wants to make more money or attract a relationship or lose weight or anything similar to that, what would you tell them?
Don't resist the conditions that exist now.
Okay.
And then ask yourself why you want these things. And realize that you want these things because you feel lack. Lack of security, lack of love, lack of health, whatever it is. The reason you feel a lack of is generally tied to your feelings of worthiness. The more worthy you feel, the more you will believe and have faith that you will meet the right person, that the money will flow in, that the health will always be there. The more unworthy you feel, the more insecure you feel, the more unloved you feel. See, many people want a mate to validate their existence. They feel that if someone loves me, then I am good. Because no one loves me, I am bad. I don't like feeling bad. Feeling bad feels bad, so I want to feel good. The way to feel good is to get someone to love me. And then that might work for a week, and then the person says something that causes them fear, and so now they say, how come you don't love me anymore? You know, if you love me, you'd do this. If you love me, you would say this. If you love me, you wouldn't say that. That sort of thing. So they try and control the other person in that relationship. Right. The reason they want money is to feel worthy or to feel secure. You're already worthy, and you couldn't be more secure. So these are things you think you want that you do not truly want. You came here to express your love, not to be loved. You do not need love. You don't need to be validated. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You do not need other people to think highly of you. You can't control any of that anyway. What you need to do is to explore reality as you intended prior to your birth, enjoy, and express your love. And when we say express your love, we say express your acceptance of all of it, all the people and all the things and all the conditions. When you are accepting someone as they are without wanting them to change, you are expressing love. When you are focused on something that you're passionate about, you're expressing love. If you see everything is going well, you're expressing love. Because expressing love means expressing acceptance. If you feel good, you're aligned with your inner self, and your focus on your life is in love. If you feel bad, you are out of alignment with the opinion of your inner self, and you are expressing fear. And so all there is love and fear. So you're either feeling good and expressing love, or feeling bad and expressing fear. And in feeling good and expressing love, you are connected to source energy and inspiration and intelligence. And in feeling fear, you are connected to a stream of consciousness designed to send you urges so that you can change the conditions. Does that make sense? If you have a lion in your living room, you will receive fear-based ideas to change the conditions. Kill the lion or get out of that room. Mm-hmm. Those are your two choices in that moment, right? Mm-hmm. Those will come through fear. That keeps you alive. That's a perfect balance of the system. But since if there's not a lion in your living room, there's nothing to fear. If you're not facing imminent death or harm, then there's nothing to fear. All those other fears are irrational. They're not real. And you can prove they're not real every time.
Mm. Okay. So let's say I have a mortgage payment that I'm low on. Well, let me go back to what you said.
Let's say you have a mortgage payment that's coming due, and you can't imagine how it's going to come through. And so now your mind goes through all the worst things that could happen. I'm going to be late. My spouse is going to feel fear and be angry and say things to me. I'm going to look bad to her and to my community. I'm going to get a foreclosure notice. I'm going to get too far behind. I'm going to have to pay extra fees. I'm going to have to I might be kicked down the street. I might be homeless. All these things, right? The worst things that could happen. So we say that anything that happens to you is happening for you. So if you get into a situation where you lose your house, that experience is for your benefit. You may not consciously be aware of that. But from a higher perspective, whether that's the perspective of the non-physical or many years later, you will see how that experience led to the new life you created in the ashes of that life. And so therefore, there's no reason to fear anything. Because when you drop that fear, all of a sudden you feel good, and now you have inspiration. And that might be the inspiration to talk to somebody about a loan, to talk to somebody about an extra job, to play the lottery, to overhear a conversation that you might have a life insurance policy that you didn't know about. All these other ideas. You see, you're never alone. And so you can worry on that, but all of you listening to this might think back on times in your life when you worried and everything turned out okay. Everything worked out. There was no reason to worry. So all of that useless worry was doing nothing other than dropping you into a low emotional state of being. And in that low emotional state of being, you receive urges to change the conditions. You receive urges to say, this bank is corrupt, that they should never have given me this loan anyway, that I shouldn't even pay this loan, that we should just leave this house and go somewhere else. See, these urges are like getting angry and having the urge to punch the wall. You can do it, but your fist is going to hurt later on.
Right. Okay. So back to if I want to make more money or attract a relationship or lose weight, you said.
Why do you want to make more money?
You said first, don't resist their circumstances.
Don't resist your conditions.
Right. And then you said, ask yourself why.
Ask yourself why, the most important question.
Ask yourself why, and then what? Try to feel as good as you can in the moment?
Well, why do you want more money?
Okay, so why do I want more money?
Why do you want more money? If you had $1 million, could you do anything with that money right now? No.
Right.
You're in this conversation with us, so there's nothing you could spend it on. We don't charge anything. So no.
But as soon as we get off, I can book a trip to Vegas and
then the plane might crash. Right? So who knows, right?
Right.
So why do you want the money? You want the money to feel secure or feel important or feel worthy.
Right. Security is the big thing.
Right. So give up that. You don't need security. You are taken care of in every moment of your life through the emotions you feel.
And I can feel secure. Give up the tying the money to the security because I can feel secure without the money.
Right. Or give up tying the money to the worthiness. The money doesn't make you worthy. The things don't make you worthy. The status doesn't make you worthy. You're already worthy. So if you're doing it for those reasons, then you're just trying to make yourself feel a way that the universe will never make you feel. If you feel unworthy, no amount of money will ever make you feel worthy. If you feel insecure, no amount of money will ever make you feel secure. You will feel more insecure with a lot of money because you'll always be thinking about, am I spending this right? Am I going to lose it? Is it going to be taken away from me?
Okay. All right. So I'm inspired to ask one more question, and that is, let's say someone out there, let's say they have a job, and let's say they're not happy in their job, and they want to find their purpose. What do you think is a good approach to eventually leaving their job and doing something that they enjoy doing and love doing?
Their purpose is to expand enjoy through experience. The job provides the perfect opportunity for that, as does every condition. So if you are expanding through experience, you are fulfilling your life's purpose. Now, if you want to live in bliss through the pursuit of a passion, that's a different story. And you do not need to leave that job to find your passion. So if you're using the excuse of your job as the reason you're not living your passion, then that is simply an excuse. What you are looking at here is a condition that you've created that's perfect for you, and it's the leaping off point for everything you truly want. The resistance of what it is the thing that's keeping you stuck in something you don't like. So we say you must figure out a way to accept the conditions as perfect and then create a vibrational stance that causes the reality to shift from inside. So you've created something, a job that you don't like, from a belief system that says you have to work hard, you have to have this job, you'll never survive if you don't have a job, you're never going to find another job if this job sucks, this job isn't what you should be doing, you're far superior to this job. All these limiting beliefs, those are all limiting beliefs that are all not true. This job is perfect right now. This job can lead anywhere you want. There is no reason to leave this job. The only reason you would ever want to leave the job is to change the conditions. But the problem is you're going to bring yourself with you to the next job. So you need to change the vibration, because the vibration is the thing that's bringing up the conditions that you do not prefer. However, you have to make peace with what is. You have to make peace. You cannot blame the conditions for anything. You have pure, unadulterated responsibility for everything that exists in your reality, and 99.9% of it is wonderful. But you're using this thing as an excuse to feel bad. You're using this thing as an excuse to feel good, which is great. Because we say feel good, feel good, feel good. It's just an excuse to feel good, right? You can use, You're just using this job as an excuse to feel bad. This person at the job as an excuse. Get good at accepting what is through appreciation and gratitude. And you will see that this job will turn into something you love. The job will transform. You might get a promotion. You might get a transfer. You might get an offer from somewhere else. You might come in to meet somebody and start a business from them. But the fighting against what is prohibiting you from finding that which you would truly enjoy. And it's all based on your limiting beliefs. Every one of them.
Right. Because the resistance might make you feel like you need to control and change the conditions.
Because the resistance is the lower emotional state of being. The acceptance is the love. The resistance is the fear. If it's something you don't like, you're resisting the message that's in this thing you don't like. Once you accept that this is a message and accept the message of it by looking inward on your belief system, then you change the beliefs and then the reality changes. But you can never control the reality, because if you have these beliefs and don't change the beliefs, then you're going to create a reality that looks just the same, even if the location and the type of work and whatever it is different. You're going to feel the same about it. It's a feeling reality, right? It might not look the same, but how it feels to you will feel the same.
Yeah, because wherever you go, you take you with you. Right. Well, Joshua, thank you. This was so enjoyable and informative, and for people out there that hasn't heard about you, now they know a little bit about what you're talking about and what you're trying to share with people.
If you have made it to this podcast and are listening to this now, whether it's current time or sometime in the future, you are a vibrational match to this information. Nothing is random. There are no accidents. This is all part of the vibration you're offering and all part of the feedback mechanism. And with that, we are complete.
All right.
Ta-da!
Wow, what'd you think?
Yeah, I'm a little hoarse. That's a lot of energy.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, my God. Yeah, it was a little more, like normally I meditate, I get myself in, and this was like the fly. So I had a little bit of trouble staying focused,
Oh, really?
So that was even though there's a lot of good information there, it was not as smooth as it usually is,
It sounded good to me.
Yeah, see, it's my perspective too. I tend to be judgmental a little bit about it, about my role in this. So Joshua is this stream of consciousness that comes through me, but the way I interpret it has a lot to do with my personality. And so Joshua is the combination, the co-creation of us two. Like Abraham would be the stream of consciousness going through Esther, right?
Right.
So what comes out is a different flavor. What I'm interested in more is more specifics. And what Esther is interested in more is, fun and feeling good and more generalities. And what I like about the Joshua is that, usually it comes out super fast and super clear. And today I felt a little bit of gaps in there, which aren't usually there. Yeah.
I didn't notice it.
Yeah, maybe you don't notice it. And when I listen back to these things, like I never listened to a roundtable. I've never listened to one. But I've listened to all the Joshuas because it's like not me, so I'm not critical of me. Right. And I always am amazed and, look back at it and just go, because when I listen to myself in a roundtable, I don't like my voice. I don't like, some of the things I say. Right. And somehow in Joshua, it's the same voice. I think maybe it's a little better enunciation than my normal lisping and slurring. But
yeah. That's really interesting. So
I had a beer today too, right before this, which I've never done before. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it affected it at all. Yeah. But so I'm like getting like a little bit easier at this. Like it's almost like writing where I can just do it because they came super quick. I mean, it was like giddiness. That's how I know. When I breathe and bring them in and set my attention and stuff and say, come on, everyone, let's get together and let's make this, really full of information and fun and all that. And then I say, so when you make me get ready to giggle, that's how I know when to come through. And so that came super quick.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow. Really? Yeah. Well, so for people who can't see this or just listening, the beer, like it was really funny when Joshua got up on the table and started dancing around. And I think the beer caused that, right?
No, that did not happen. No, we're going to have to make sure that everyone gets a video recording of this.
All right, I made that up. That didn't happen. Joshua did not get up on the table and start dancing around.
No.
That didn't happen. I made that up.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever gotten up on a bar and danced?
Bar? I don't think so. I've had friends who've done it.
Yeah.
But I have never done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so was this the first time that you channeled Joshua without meditating before?
Well, I meditated this morning, but yeah.
Like right before?
Yeah, it's the first time that I've done it live without meditating right before. And it's the first time I've been in the middle of a conversation, and then jumped into it. But, I realized that as more people want interviews and things like that, they're going to want to see both sides of it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I was trying to figure out how to do this. I was like, let's just do 2 podcasts where the first one's me and the second one's all Joshua. Yeah. But this worked out great. It was fun. Yeah. It's also interesting what they choose to talk about to an audience that isn't really exposed to the stuff, It's still pretty leading edge stuff,
It really is. It went really good, I think. And exactly, like for people who are just, a lot of my audience, they're not familiar with this stuff, and maybe it's their first time listening to Joshua. So I think it's a great introduction.
You're going to get a lot of people interested in law of attraction because that's in your title, and it's how people will find you. And what you're doing is bringing forth tapping and law of attraction, but also Joshua really into this, and that's what sets you apart from anyone else in this, is that you understand both sides of it. You understand the higher perspective and what your role in tapping is. So interesting.
It is. And so I get a lot of my audience is also tappers, faster EFT. So they who have never heard of Joshua, and
So what's interesting too is, so Joshua, Abraham, everyone, you're the creator of your reality, and no one can create your reality. And so you think about you as a tapper, what are you really doing? You're just helping them see things from another perspective. And once they see themselves from another perspective, then their world has to change.
Yeah,
you're working on beliefs.
Yeah, right. Well, exactly. That's how I think of it. I think of the tapping is one of the best ways in the world to process your fears and process your limiting beliefs.
Right.
And not only that, but also change the past change the story of memories that could have been traumatic, or things that just create patterns in our life.
What's interesting about a traumatic memory too is if you think something bad happened, right? Well, it's from a perspective that you think it should not have happened, and if you see the higher perspective of things, where you're an eternal being, you set this up so that you could be launched on a trajectory, so that you could learn something about yourself from this, and be, create desires out of this. Like for me, it was losing everything in the financial collapse of 2007, where I thought for a long time that should never happen. I should have done things differently. It'd been in real estate my whole life. I should have seen this coming. I was blindsided. I had no clue. And now looking back, I go, how could you not have clue? Obviously, it was coming. So now I changed my perspective on that, because
that's what we do.
Yeah, had that never happened, I'd never be doing this. And my life now is a gazillion times. I mean, I had a great life then. This life is so much better. I was chasing the carrot the whole time.
Right. Well, that's exactly what we do. We will go back to a memory that might be a traumatic memory or experience, and we change. We're tapping out the resistance to that, what happened. We're tapping out the negative emotions. We're tapping out any anger, and we're making peace with what happened.
Yeah.
And we're changing your perspective of it.
Right. So they're changing their set of beliefs and their vibration from a tapping session. And so the tapping session is actually allows them a vehicle to change their vibration, so that now the reality they create, not right away, but after a period of time, and you see the results all the time. Now, those people who don't change are just holding on to those limiting beliefs.
Right.
That's all they're doing.
Yeah. Well, this is really cool.
Yeah.
This is it's a lot of firsts, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I enjoyed my time with you immensely, and I can't wait
Gary, it
until
was
I
fun.
talk to you again Saturday.
Can't.
Yeah, I can't believe I missed. I may not be able to do this Saturday too, which is funny.
Really?
Because this is the move-in weekend. Yeah.
Well, who's moving in? You're moving in
Yeah,
this weekend?
we have to move in because this place is what you see around me has been
Oh.
sold. Yeah.
Wow.
We're moving in. So we got a lot
Okay.
of stuff going on, but I won't be able to do Joshua Live, but we'll see each other somehow. I look forward
We
to
will.
it. Yeah. And
All right,
you're
well,
coming
thanks for doing this,
Are you
Gary.
coming to North Carolina?
I'm definitely coming. I'm just, we're waiting to figure it out, like when and where, but I'm definitely
Yeah.
coming.
Well, November might be good, and the leaves are falling, and that's beautiful there. So,
All right. Well, November's coming up soon.
yeah.
Yeah.
November 15th was when Joshua started in 2013, 5 years.
November, so 5 years.
5
Wow.
years from them to now. It's unbelievable what's happened.
So it might be interesting to do be there during November 15th, maybe, or something.
Yeah, that'd be very
Yeah.
cool to do a podcast. All right. Well,
All right,
been
Gary.
Great.
Yes. Thank you so much for doing this, and we will talk to you soon.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.